Okay, so we're officially going to start our webinar today. It's a great pleasure for me to be moderating today's discussion. So my name is Emilio Hernandez. I'm from CGAP. I'm Senior Financial Sector Specialist, and I currently lead CGAP's program on agent networks at the last mile. And today we have a stellar panel, right, composed of great individuals from different organizations that have come together to try new agent network models in Indonesia to be able to serve cocoa farmers. I'll start with the introductions of our panelists, but just before, just housekeeping tips for you. We will have a question and answer session at the end, but you can start typing all of your questions, comments in the chat. We will be monitoring the chat, and some of these questions will be answered in the chat, and others will be answered in the question and answer session after we have our discussions with our panelists. So welcome, everyone. We're delighted to be joined by our teams from Indonesia, both from Grab, Cargill, and IDEO. I'll start with the short introductions. We have with us Yasaka Putri. She's a strategy and planning manager at Grab Kios, part of the Grab Indonesia group. We also have with us Fadhil Akbar Kurniawan, who is a sustainability partnership manager at Cargill Cocoa and Chocolate in Indonesia. From our RDO team, we have Kanika Kumar, who is Director of Partnerships. We also have Yosha Gupta, an Agtech specialist. And we have Sarah Asif. She's a design program manager, all from IDEO, part of the Last Mile Money project that they have. So with that, we'll go straight into the content of today's discussion, and I'll give the floor to Kanika so she can start.
Thanks so much, Emilio. Hi, everyone. It's so great to meet you all. We're super excited to share more about our work in Indonesia. But before that, I just thought we can introduce ourselves and our program. So Sarah, Yosha, and I work with Last Mile Money. We're an IDEO and Gates Foundation collaboration. It's a 5-year innovation program, and our goal really through this innovation program is to support digital financial services and connect them with low-income customers and underserved communities in emerging markets. Most recently, we have worked with Grab and Cargill, but over the last few years, we've worked with multiple partners from Southeast Asia, from South Asia, as well as Africa and Latin America. We've been able to, with them, reach over 4 million merchants, around 8 million micro merchants. We've built over 80 prototypes, and we've collaborated in investing in innovations that connect these underserved and underbanked communities to the digital economy. And this particular collaboration that we're going to talk about was one very interesting coming together of organizations, and we're looking forward to share more with you. So just to give you an overview, we met Cargill a couple of years ago, and we heard from them that one of their biggest challenges was around premium payments to small cocoa farmers in rural Indonesia, specifically in Sulawesi region. These premium payments are really small payment amounts that Cargill distributes to farmers twice a year. And farmers tend to prefer cash, and the cost of distributing this premium was actually quite high. And it was a logistically really complex process for Cargill that took time and often left farmers without access to their premiums because it was too far for them to travel to collect their premiums. Sometimes they had dormant accounts, and then the pandemic aggravated the situation. We had also worked with Grab, and we had heard from Grab their intent to look at more rural markets. and understand what it would take to build an agent network in rural markets. And so we really saw a very mutually beneficial and complementary collaboration that was possible here by bringing Cargill and Grab together to test what it might look like to embed agents within farmer communities to distribute this premium. So we really saw an opportunity for Cargill to distribute payments seamlessly and build long-term relationships with these farmers because they could distribute the payments quickly. They could help some farmers who were agents increase their income potential. And on the other hand, Grab really had an opportunity to more effectively and efficiently onboard these agents by partnering with Cargill, a trusted brand in farming communities. And so really that's how this collaboration was orchestrated. We started in 2021 with a really short and quick prototype. And in 2022, we scaled it up. I'll hand it over to Sarah to tell us more about our pilot and how we scaled and what we learned from it. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for that wonderful introduction. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll see here that past premiums have really taken up to 7 months, with the majority of the delay being in the traders distributing premiums to farmers. So it took Cargill then another month to verify these premium payments from the list that the traders had. These had farmer signatures as proof that they had successfully distributed the premium. And this made up to 7 months. However, 2 years ago, like Kanika said, IDEO and Cargill began exploring these ideas, where we also invited Grab because they were an innovative partner with a flexible agent model that could work in the last mile. In 2021, we did a small pilot with 10 agents and 50 Cargill farmers. We wanted to see if this would be feasible and desirable, and it really was. We started to see those markers in a few weeks. And then in 2022, we designed a pilot to test if rural farmers could act as agents at scale to prove the viability of a rural agent network. We wanted to crowd in more investment for last mile digital financial services. We wanted to create a thriving and scalable distribution network for Cargill. And lastly, we wanted to build the rails for rural market for Grab. So as a result, 1 year later, Grab and Cargill have scaled up to 100 agent pilot. We have served 1,000 Cargill farmers. They have managed to disperse 50 million Indonesian rupiah worth of premium. And this was done for 1,000 farmers with a 99% successful disbursement rate, whereas our target was a minimum 80%. So the agents were really able to exceed that target. And while these numbers prove viability of the pilot, let's also look at the process we showed earlier. It's been brought down to 10 days from a 7-month duration. With much of the value chain digitized, it has eliminated the need for premiums distributed through traders. And here, rural agents took around 1 to 3 days to distribute the premiums to the farmers. And this was done in a hybrid fashion, both digitally and cash, where farmers were nudged to go digital. Some of the stats from this 2022 pilot will show us that the target GMV that we had set up in the beginning of the pilot was $38 US. Compared to the urban city setting in Grab, this is $75. But after agreement from all stakeholders and comparing data in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we established that $38 was a good number. And here our agents surprised us once again by achieving 111% of the target and achieving a GMV of $80, which is an amazing display of how there is a business case for rural agents. And some more numbers to substantiate this case is that agents acquired 91% new customers from 800 unique customers they served. They did this through mobile top-up transactions. And this is really pretty impressive because the overall estimated market size was 70,000 people across the 24 villages in which this pilot was run. Again, like I said, the GMV is 111% higher than the target. And during the exit interviews, 90% of the farmers mentioned that they were willing to sell a large part, if not all of their cocoa produced to Cargill, which indicates to us the tremendous trust that they place in Cargill and the loyalty that has increased as a result of this pilot. And more impressively, the agent retention was 71% post-pilot, Again, we had set a target of 65%, looking at the rural numbers, and rural retention stays there, but for us, we were able to achieve 71%. So all of these stats are, while very encouraging, and we have been able to achieve targets beyond the KPIs that we had set. It demonstrates a clear demand case for business case in rural areas. However, I'll now hand over to my co-presenter Yosha Gupta to start us off talking about what were some of the insights that we learned from this pilot.
Thank you, Sarah. Always so exciting to hear the numbers, actually. So we've divided our key insights into three main buckets. The first of which is to show you the more details about the business case. The second is about what was the keystone for this business case, which is the star agents. And the third is about how these rural agent networks can be really transformative for end users as well. So coming to our first set of insights, which is that building a rural agent network makes sense, but also sense. So we saw how rural agents are viable and can recover setup costs and onboarding costs within a year's time. So while in rural agent networks, initial setup and onboarding can be expensive because there is an extensive amount of awareness and trust building required, even with an existing network like Cargill, who had a farmer network. And we saw that in our pilot as well, where the cost of acquisition was about $20. And this includes the field officer's cost, it includes marketing and operational and promotional costs, basically. But estimated, it can go down with efficiencies coming in, with more digital onboarding and nudges. It can go down to $7.7, which is typically what Grab's acquisition cost for agents is. But the good news is that even with a higher cost of acquisition, because we had star agents and we had good performing agents, for these high performing agents, this cost of acquisition can actually be recovered within 2 to 3 months. And even for the other agents, the other transacting agents, the recovery can happen within 4 to 10 months. And hence, how the agent network can be viable within a year's time. This recovery period is basically based on the fact that the GMV was actually growing. And as Sarah spoke about earlier, the agents actually exceeded the benchmarks that we had set up for GMV. In August, it was already $80, which was 111% over the target. In September, this is a projected number that it was $92, but the actual GMV was again $135, which far exceeded the GMV that was set up as the target as well. So this again reiterates the business case that even with a higher acquisition cost, because there are these star agents and good performing agents, this cost can be recovered and the agent network can be viable. Our second insight in this bucket is about how Cargill support really helped create disproportionate trust in Grab services over alternatives. So Grab were relatively unknown in the rural agent networks, while Cargill were a trusted entity. And because of this trust, this helped the agents, the potential agents, get over their fear of scamming and phishing, which was a theme we did hear about consistently. The agents were quite worried about that. And as evidenced by one of the agents, that we spoke with, Agent Arpina, who actually wasn't interested in first signing up, but only after speaking to the field officer multiple times and speaking to, one of her relatives as well, then she was convinced to try the GrabKios app. Once she tried it, she saw the margins were better, she saw all the vouchers and offers, and then, she completely switched over to using that. And this was also evidenced by the fact that we conducted online interviews to find out how did, all the agents get to know about the GrabKios app. Primarily, it was, 75% was through Mercy Corps, who actually managed the pilot on ground. And all the rest was also through a combination of either Mercy Corps or the extension workers. So this reiterates how, because Cargill were a trusted entity, Mercy Corps were a trusted entity, this really helped, a relatively unknown entity like Grab to come in and create the trust. Money is always something that requires trust, and this is what helped create that trust. So this first set of insight demonstrates again how a partnership like Grab and Cargill really helped both of them leverage off each other's strength and help demonstrate the business case in rural agent networks. I'll hand back to Sarah to take us through the rest of the insights.
Thank you so much, Yosha. So having established the business case, we also now move on to the second insight bucket, where we talk about, star agents who are the keystone for successful rural agent networks. And why is that? So first, to start with, who exactly is a star agent? Star agents are high performers who have contributed disproportionately to the GMV. And here you're seeing agent Santi. Santi completed 216 transactions over the duration of the pilot, and her GMV was $1,985 US dollars. She's 42, she lives in Village Soga, and she was previously a BRI Link agent. And even though her village is on the smaller side with 1,500 people, but she offered people electricity tokens, she offered payments to farmers and customers, but also offered liquidity to her fellow agents. And she was really nimble in her use of her wallet. She used BRI to deposit between 2.5 and 4.5 million rupiah into her GrabKios wallet. She would do this 2 to 3 times a week, which again made her agile in cashing in and cashing out of her wallet. And through this pilot, we discovered that there were many star agents like Santi, and they earned 12 times the GMV of other agents. Like Santi, there are other top performers who share similar characteristics. Through this pilot, we know that these similar characteristics span education and business experience. So a blueprint was laid through this pilot, and we can identify these star agents. As you see on the graph on the right, it shows that findings from our data analysis, women are more likely to be star agents. Not just this, we found that being educated and having prior entrepreneur experience helped people become better agents and become star agents. And irrespective of whether agents had a kiosk or they were a farmer, or if they had, if they had prior business background and a spirit to be successful, they were more likely to become star agents with these disproportionate and amazing GMV results. We know that Grab can leverage Cargill's existing network and this farmer knowledge to sort of short circuit this process of identifying star agents in rural areas. Not just this, because we also know that women's social equity helped them perform better as agents. We know that among the top 10 agents, women contributed to the top 10% of the GMV, and overall they earned 4 times the income compared to male agents. And why gender played this important role in driving top performance is because even though the women were using the app for the first time, the GrabKios app, and they were new to the platform, they brought with them this wealth of contacts, prior social connections. And you'll see this agent, Kasma, she was a star agent who promoted GrabKios transactions through her WhatsApp. She, spread the word through her, friends, family, and network. And she was so business savvy that she was eager to supplement her business income, existing business income. And she found that GrabKios was the right platform to do that. And she even wished that she could, merge her business verticals. So not only sell Tupperware through Grab, but also be able to purchase fertilizer from the same platform. So having discovered these star agents, knowing that they can be trained, we also found that it was actually the digital nudges and on-demand field support that meaningfully increased revenue for star agents. These star agents exist. We know how to identify them and train them, but we can also make them. And during this pilot, we conducted a variety of training sessions that were hybrid, online and offline. And these trainings span topics of cybersecurity, bookkeeping, promotion strategies, and that helped agents really assuage these fears of fraud and set them up to confidently use GrabKios. And our data analysis showed us that online training was hugely successful in raising the GMV. In fact, it raised it by 3 times. And 78% of the agents who had timely transactions, they reported receiving more than 10 nudges to drive their performance. And combined with the ad hoc and on-demand visits by the field officers, together with these digital nudges, this was what proved to be the golden combination in hitting the training jackpot, in training these rural agents to perform with these amazing results. So moving on to the third set of insights, we know that rural agents are transformative for end users. We have established that rural agents make, there is a business sense here. They're anchored by star agents. We can train star agents. And now why are they so transformative is because not only do people and agents get attracted to this because they have more profits, it's competitive, it's convenient to use, but also in a special small experiment that we conducted through this pilot, our on-ground partner, Mercy Corps, they brokered a partnership between farmer groups agents and agri-product companies and fertilizer companies, Syngenta and Pupukkaltin. So in this small experiment, farmers were willing to access agri-products by GrabKios agents, and using a demo plot, farmer made payments to the agents, and agents used the GrabKios platform to digitally remit to the agri companies. This was a layerable use case, and it was promising because we know that 80% of the farmers use their premium disbursement on daily needs and agri inputs. And in fact, we can see that there was a 1.7 million per agent transaction that they spent on fertilizer. So this is a very promising use case for us to see that there can be layerable digital value chains extended on the base case of premium payments. So I know that I have thrown a lot of information at you, so I'm going to show you this summary slide. And to just summarize, we know that building a rural agent network makes sense because it's financially viable. We know that star agents are the keystone for successful rural agent networks. And we also know that rural agent networks are transformative for end users. So with that, I'll just take a pause and hand it back to Emilio.
Thank you so much. This was a very synthesized, excellently synthesized presentation, and just like to very briefly comment that this experience with GrabKios and Cargill really illustrates the type of innovations that we're seeing in other markets, star markets, where they made a lot of progress in rural areas. You can clearly see that aggregation of services. You got GrabKios with very valued services, and Cargill with a very important use case in rural areas, such as bulk payments for agricultural trade. Combining the two at the agent level allows to multiply the number of use cases that customers can benefit from, and then you get more transactions for the agent, which explains this tremendous viability. So it really reflects those important principles on how you make rural agents viable. And the technology behind it, I think, is very interesting because you're using app-based technology as your device for the agent, which is a bit more simpler and less costly than your more traditional POS devices that your normal banking agents use, right? That's another source. And I found fascinating your description of how you actually did the training. That's also one of the things that we've noticed, that these new models are great, but require a big upfront cost in training your agents. And so knowing how to more effectively train your agent is key with your combination of online and face-to-face trainings from both Grab and Cargill. So thank you very much for that. Now, I'll pass on to our discussions with our panelists, our members from Cargill and GrabKios. So Yasaka, Fadhil, thank you for joining us today. The first question I have for you is really related to what motivated each of your companies to even try this pilot, right? You are big companies, you have a core business. Grab has been traditionally focused in your big urban markets where there are a lot of people, and Cargill as an agribusiness is focused in rural areas with your agricultural sector, right? So what was the motivation? Where did you find the win-win scenario for you guys to start this initiative? Who would like to start? Maybe Yasaka, we'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. So for Grab, we are always interested in expanding our agent network to tier 2, tier 3 cities and beyond, because we saw that there's a lot of untapped potential there, a lot of markets to be approached, and but we know that when we try to open new market, we enter the new market, the cost will be very high, because we need to build the infrastructure, and more than that, we need to build trust. We need to build the relationship. We need to build the awareness. And when IDEO introduced us to Cargill, we see that Cargill already has a network there. Cargill already built the trust with the farmer networks in Bone and Sopeng. So we see that we can, by partnering with Cargill, it will be easier for us to enter the market because they already trust Cargill, having relationship with Cargill, so it's easier for us to enter. And we have the solid use case, which is the premium disbursement. So we thought that it kind of the hook for the potential agents to know Grab and further use us for other use cases that we provided in our GrabKios app. Yeah, it's so because it's always better we go together, right, than just going alone to open the new market. So that motivate us to work with Cargill. And we also like to, by doing this pilot, we want to know that how to onboard and maintain agents in rural areas. We want to validate our hypothesis because we always think that, okay, there's an untapped potential market there, there is a business there, but we want to validate, is there really a business there, and what is the challenge and how to untangle that. So by doing this pilot, we can iterate our strategy to enter the rural markets.
Thank you, Yasaka. Very clear. Fadhil, from Cargill's end, what was the motivation?
Thank you, Emilio. So yeah, our purpose in Cargill is to nourish the world in safe, responsible, and sustainable way. We drive progress against this area. We do so by engaging, empowering, and also advancing sustainable practices across the farm and also the field. Under our Cargill Cocoa Promise, which is celebrating its 10-year anniversary at the moment, we source cocoa directly from certified smallholders in Indonesia, building stronger relationship both with them and their communities. We are also committed to building capacity of certified local traders who are key partners in our supply chain in the regions. In this extent, premium payment is very important in our Cargill Cocoa Promise because it directly correlates with farmer loyalty and also cocoa industry towards sustainable farming. The Last Mile Money project that we held with IDEO and Grab enables unbanked farmers in Cargill's supply chain to open a better access for a more efficient and transparent process for cash premium, as well as building their capacity in financial and also digital literacy, providing them opportunity with additional income generating activities, which is also could improve their overall well-being. So that's why I think the partnership between Cargill and Grab is makes sense, and not also give a benefit to the farmers involved in Cargill cocoa supply chains, but it can also spread the benefit into the local communities nearby. So that's why we see that this pilot is very aligned with one of our pillars under Cargill Cocoa Promise, which is community well-being and also farmers' livelihood.
That makes sense. So if I dare to summarize, so for Cargill, it was seeking that partner that could help you make the payment more efficient to your last mile cocoa producers, right? You have been struggling finding an efficient and transparent method of paying those premiums. And for Grab, it was a great opportunity to leverage on those Cargill agents and that already were there and transform them into Grab agents so that you could not only deliver the payment of cocoa to farmers, but also introduce your services to those farmers, right? And leverage from that. Now, you mentioned, Yasaka, Grab was always interested in going beyond the tier 1, tier 2 cities, more into peri-urban rural areas. Do you think you find this pilot confirms that rural agents are different than urban agents? And what do you think is the main difference between the two?
Okay, so I think for rural agents, we need to like train them more, because basically for urban agents, they already able to like learn by themselves, like how to sell, how to like increase their business, and so on and so forth. So they have like lots of source of knowledge for urban areas. But for rural agents, we need to spend like more time to train them and to what is it like, to induce their productivity. So we need more time. And furthermore, as Kanika, Sarah, and Yosha mentioned before, that eventually when we already find like the criteria of the star agents, actually this can work. So we just need to, now we have like the baseline for the criteria of what successful agents would like. So we can like, whenever we enter like the new rural area market, or when we want to expand the projects in Bone and Sopeng, we can like take a step back to identify what is the criteria and find the suitable agents that can be like, we can invest our time and money, but we can get like the promising result for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe a question for both of you. What do you aspire this pilot to result in the future? What does success look like, in other words, for Cargill and Grab after this pilot? What would be a description of the ultimate win-win scenario that you seek as you move into this learning journey of working together? Maybe we'll start with you, Fadhil.
As previously has been presented very well by the IDEO team, Cargill pays premium twice a year, and previously it could take us up to 6 months to complete the cash distribution, mainly because of the geographical challenge, and also some farmers don't have access to the bank account. Even though that there are a couple of efforts that we made previously to help farmers to open a new bank account. However, in many cases, the bank account will eventually become dormant as the farmers don't use it actively. So we have to pay the premium back in cash to the farmers, and it took a quite long time again. So we are looking for the innovation on delivering this transparency between us and the farmers, especially the unbanked ones, who live far away from our supply chain. And that's why we see that the Grab Kios system that backed by Grab is very promising to be tested in our supply chain. So that's why one pleasant surprise that we found as well, that how we can make a transaction to 1,000 farmers. We managed to do so in just 2 weeks with success rate up to 99%. So going forward, we see that the agents network can act as the neutral third party, which ensure not only easy access to farmers to collect their incentive, but also to ensure that only the deserving cocoa farmers can receive their incentive, right? So moreover, their presence also help the farmers to access various digital transactions, such as electricity top-up, prepaid, phone credit, remittance, and etc. So I think enabling this digital payment ecosystem in rural network is a one step forward for us as well to make a more inclusive financial ecosystem in rural market. So I think this partnership with Grab is something that we look forward to escalate more to a bigger scale in our supply chain in Indonesia.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for these insights. Now, just to continue with the panel discussions, I'd like to move to our IDEO team. So we see this pilot. It's a unique window into the granular details on how do you establish an innovative agent model in rural areas. But my question for you is, what is your perspective in terms of its replicability? Can you replicate it in other parts of Indonesia? Can you replicate it in other countries? What's your experience in this replication process, and what does it take? Maybe Kanika, you'd like to take that one?
Sure, I can take a stab at that, and Sarah, Yosha, please feel free to step in. I think that's the big question we're asking ourselves as well, Emilio, and I think we're right now at a moment of thinking about what might be learnings from this that apply in other markets. We believe strongly that the challenges in many of these markets are similar. So cash is prevalent, agent networks are hard to access, agent viability is difficult, digital penetration is increasing. So the enabling as well as challenging conditions are similar while context may be different. And so we have hope that there are definitely learnings from here that we might apply. So for instance, I can imagine us just taking the overall idea of embedded finance and using that as a way to replicate in other markets, maybe potentially for other more relevant use cases in those markets, and use this as an analogous inspiration to figure out how we might embed finance in communities to create more accessible and convenient on-ramps for customers to access digital financial services. And the goal is not just to replicate to other countries, but I think within Indonesia itself, I think we're looking to extend and expand this ecosystem to invite other agri partners as well as other agent managers, because unless there is a thriving ecosystem, it's really hard to keep these agents consistently active, and it requires a re-engagement and reactivation investment every time we need to go in. So we're really at a moment to invite others, and we'd love to hear from folks in this room or others they think that we might be actually able to collaborate with.
Great. Well, I'd like to bring in one particular question that was in the chat from one of our participants that I think relates to this question of replicability. So our colleague Jane is asking whether there were, it was our colleague Aparajita who was suggesting that, are there any specific community or village level characteristics that were particularly strong in explaining why this pilot was a success? Are there characteristics that we need to look for before we start this pilot elsewhere to make sure that are already there for things to go smoothly, or not? What are your sense on that?
Yeah, I can ask. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. I was going to ask you to step in.
Thanks, Kanika. So for this pilot, we specifically, chose, there were 24 villages in both Bone and Sepang, and they were very similar in terms of characteristics. Their population was between 1,500 to 3,000. And the agents that we selected, who had basic literacy, could use a smartphone. So that was pretty similar. What we found is really strategic in actually achieving success is the strategic agent mapping, where we mapped the distance between an agent and a farmer. For this pilot in particular, we found that 6 kilometers was a good sort of distance between agent and farmers. And then the farmer to agent ratio was also really crucial in making sure that the agents could reach the farmers and the farmers could reach the agents. We also found, because the disbursements happened so quickly in 3 days, they were successfully dispersed, that you could increase the distance, or you could increase the number of agent to farmers. You could play with that ratio even up to 28. Granted that you could pay the agent a little bit more commission for the trouble they were taking into, going to more agents or going to more farmers essentially. So that was something that, created success for us in this pilot in particular. And it's really important that you map that strategically, the agent to farmers.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing I would add additionally is the star agent element. I think while one part of it is having successful star agents and identifying them, the second was we noticed that amongst all agents, there was a sense of responsibility and accountability that also enabled them to successfully disburse this money. So I think it's more the identification of agent and creating more enabling conditions for them to be able to disburse or sell these services, and less so the size of the village or those other conditions. So I think that's at least the learning we've had. Maybe that will change at scale, but that's what we know for so far.
Thank you. Well, maybe one additional question that I think you highlighted was very, very critical is finding that sweet mix of training techniques that made the training effective in creating, good functional agents. Maybe you would like to comment a little bit more, give more details on whether the mix that you found here is something that it's also replicable, or you would expect that mix to change, where there are some places where you can do it completely online, or other places where online just doesn't work and you really have to stick with face-to-face. What are your impressions on that? I don't know who would like to take that one.
Emilio, is it like training the agents, or is this
training the agents? Yeah, you mentioned the online trainings and the face-to-face trainings. Yeah.
I think what we noticed was that a combination, especially for this market, was what worked. Especially we learned post-pilot when some of the in-person support kind of was removed. We saw a lot more churn amongst agents. So this makes us believe that I think having periodic touch points, or having someone that the agents can more easily access on phone, even if it's not in person, but can I pick up the phone and call someone who can resolve my issue, as opposed to sending a WhatsApp message or troubleshooting digitally. I think that is a critical unlock in training agents, or helping agents troubleshoot and help them stay active. So we think that so far it is most likely still going to be a hybrid physical and online combination. Having said that, we really did see in our first pilot that WhatsApp was a really powerful tool, and gamifying training, especially in the first few days of onboarding the agent, had led to higher success in their retention and activity levels. So capturing them in this first 1 to 2 weeks and nudging them through online nudges can really go a long way in keeping them active, and potentially stay active longer than they might without that support.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we're right on time to move to the question and answer sessions. I see there are some questions being written on the chat already. I'll start with those, but I encourage our participants to please start writing and sending more of your questions so that we can take them now. And these questions are probably for all the panelists, so let me know how you respond. But I'll start with one question we have here from Jane. It says, I would like to know if there's a conflict for agents to train end users to make digital payments for products and services such as farm inputs, as opposed to cashing out, since the cash out transaction automatically benefits the agent in commission earnings. So yeah, go ahead.
I can take that one. Yeah. So just to clarify that a little bit, in terms of the options that the farmers had for receiving their premium, obviously cash was one. Farm inputs wasn't really an option during the pilot. That was a small test that we did at the end of the pilot. So the option was basically between cash and mobile top up and electricity token as the cashless options. And in fact, to your point, we actually tried designing the incentive in a way, and we were doing A/B testing basically. So we had Group A and Group B. In Group A, it was just standard incentive of 10,000, for every premium payout. In Group B, what we were trying to do was that will extra incentive actually encourage, them to go cashless? That And this was extra incentive given both to the agent and to the farmer. So the agent was communicating to the farmer that, hey, instead of cash, if you take, mobile top up, or if you take electricity token, and especially because everybody uses mobile top up. So we really thought that hopefully that cashless percentage would actually go up in Group B. But even double the incentive literally did not lead to any change in cashless transactions in Group B. That was quite an interesting learning for us, actually, that while incentives are enough, are good for getting agents excited about getting them onboarded and getting them excited about the opportunity, but higher incentive was definitely not enough to change this proportion of, preference for cash, because cash is just so deeply embedded in this ecosystem. So in fact, to your point, we actually designed it the opposite way, that we tried incentivizing them to go cashless with higher incentive. So one clear learning here was definitely that, yes, just higher incentive is not enough. That use case actually needs to be something which is relevant. So again, to your point, farm inputs is actually something we would like to test out further, which was a small part of the pilot test at the end. But that's actually something we'd like to test out further. But of course, the commissions will have to be designed in a way that they're consistent across every option. And it shouldn't be less for one option compared to the other when we're trying to see what works better.
Thank you. That leads to another very important point for rural agents that we found elsewhere in the world, and it's liquidity management, right? So when the agent, the star agent or the Cargill / Grab agent is offering services to customers, much of these customers come and do a cash out for their Cargill payment, and which means that the agent has to have enough electronic float to do a real-time transaction. If the agent doesn't have enough electronic float, the agent can't process that cash out, and that's a huge inconvenience for the customer, right? However, Grab has a lot of use cases that are related to cash in, airtime top up, right? Bill payments. And so by joining the two, you're creating the opportunity for other customers to come and want to do a cash in, right? So I was wondering how that dynamic played out in your pilot, meaning that did the use cases that Grab offered, which are mainly associated to cash in, were able to balance out the cash out transactions that are associated with agricultural payments, such that your agent was able to, better manage its liquidity and not have to go, to the bank to rebalance its float account every two days, which is a huge cost for them, right? Any comments on how that played out?
I'm happy to take a stab at it, but Emilio, I think a couple of things to just clarify there. I think given that this was a bit of a pilot and was designed in a particular way, I think there weren't as many liquidity constraints amongst these agents during the pilot. I anticipate they must have had some of that post-pilot, but during the pilot, I think they didn't have as many liquidity constraints. But just to respond to your question, there were far fewer demands for cash in, and there were more for cash out. And the way we had identified these agents was those that had enough mobility to easily access an ATM or a liquidity point to cash out. And then we noticed interesting organic kind of collaborations emerging, like Sarah had mentioned about the star agent who started to offer liquidity to other agents in her vicinity. And so some of that kind of organically happened. But particularly in this instance, we didn't see liquidity constraints, I think, just given how it was designed. But it's something we are curious to study more when we test it actually in the next couple of months in a live payment situation. But I don't know if others have any builds to that.
One thing I'll just add to that is that because agents had received this money from Cargill to Grab to pay to the farmers, we saw this among a lot of agents that they kept that money in the Grab app, the Grab wallet, and they use their own money to pay premiums to other people, to the farmers. because they thought that, keeping the money in their own wallet was very competitive. They could use it for topping up their own wallets. So that's how they also created liquidity for themselves and kind of like lengthened that cash flow cycle. So this was something very interesting. And there was incredible trust in this moment too, because they felt that, this money is going to stay here. I can pay the farmer their premium and then use this money later.
That makes sense. Yasaka, would you have any comments in terms of how do you find that the use cases that Grab had, how did they land in this pilot with this type of rural clientele? Any lessons that might lead you to think maybe we can tweak some of our products, or maybe add products that we hadn't thought about to better cater to this specific clientele and get your cash-in transactions increasing over time?
Yeah, actually, like what the products that we have in GrabKios app is already some kind of basic necessities. So I think like airtime, everyone now is needing to like top up the data package for their mobile phone, and then they need to buy like electricity for their home or sending money to their relatives. So it's quite, basic necessities. But what we learned from the pilot, there is like a demand for them like to buy like fertilizer or something that related with the farmer's activity. So I think that it can be like one of the roadmap or the pipeline that we need to work with our product team, like how to enable such physical goods products within our apps. So it can be like purchased through our app, it can be transacted via our app. So I think that's the one of the potential market also for this kind of rural markets.
Right. And maybe a question for you, Fadhil, on Cargill's end. What are some of your lessons in terms of what kind of change in the behavior of farmers do you think will generate more efficient payments for the products? Do you, for example, foresee or are witnessing more loyalty, or are you witnessing more productivity? What kind of impact do you foresee after your effort of making payments faster, transparent, convenient?
Yeah. So yeah, I can say I can split it in two points, Emilio. The first one is for general farmers. I think enabling this a quicker and faster transaction in distribute cash premium will definitely improve farmers' loyalty. They don't have to go far away to the downtown to pick up their premium. It's also saving their transportation cost as well. And also it's encourage farmers with a smaller premium to pick up their premium on time, because most of the time they feel reluctant, because sometimes the premium that they will get is not equal to the transportation expense that they have to bear. And the second one is for those for those specific farmers that have business, or those who have nurseries, for example, they see having or involved and participating as GrabKios agents is an opportunity for them to increase their livelihood. So there's example in one of our area, Pak Aris. So he is a nursery operator. He is also a farmer as well, and he participates as a GrabKios agent and working with his wife to manage the transaction. So I think this is an example in how farmers can, improve their livelihood, and also making a more diversification of income, so they don't have to rely on their farm, the co-farm only, but they can also unlock more opportunities as a GrabKios agents.
That makes sense. Yeah. We have time for some more questions. I see that more popping up in the chat. Aparajita mentions, given what Yasaka mentioned about the skills gap and training needs of rural agents, I'm curious to know what are the views of the panel of leveraging such a rural network for product services beyond cash in and cash out. Is it better to focus on a limited set of services, or does expanding to a basket at some point starts making sense? I understand that this may not be the objective of this pilot, but would appreciate any rural views. So if I understood the question, is it better to focus on a limited set of services or a wider suite of services? And, you know, perhaps what's the right, you know, how much is too much service aggregation? Any comments?
Yeah, maybe I can take that question. So in Grab's point of view, so for the rural market, I think it's better to focus on specific set of services. But of course, we're not like only focusing on the cash in and cash out. But again, as I said before, we have like other products such as airtime and bill pay that we can grow, and we can give like easier education for them, like, okay, now rather than you top up your electricity to the bank, or you have to go like far away, you can top up in GrabKios agent. So something like that, we can focus on the products that have like a bigger demand, starting with them, and then scale it up to another product when this core product is already like sustained.
That
I
makes
think
sense.
just to add to that really quickly, we did some modeling around this, and just double clicking on what Yasaka said, a smaller suite of products reduces onboarding and training costs significantly. And we noticed through the modeling that in such an instance, it is possible for a rural agent to be economically competitive with an urban agent within 2 to 3 months, because it just significantly reduces their cost, but keeps a certain revenue threshold that they can continue to maintain that's relevant to the customers in their vicinity.
Mhm,
So just thought I'd add that.
mhm, mhm. That makes sense. Well, nobody wants to comment more on that one? Well, thank you. That's perfect timing for us. So I would like to, we've run out of time for today. I just want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website, CGAP. You can check it anytime. There's also some additional material available there. I know there's a video where you can go and see firsthand who are these farmers and their views about participating in the pilot, as well as the rural agents. I'd like to thank the panelists for joining us. This was a great presentation, great debate, great reflections, and we would like to wish you a very nice day, and thank you for joining this CGAP webinar. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.